very good evening to you and welcome to Powerbrief, the 27th day of the month of August, the year 2020. And as we look into history, it reminds us of one thing. 10 years ago, at such a time, at such a day, and at such a date, and at such a month, Kenya promulgated its new constitution that had taken a long journey. People lost their lives, others were jailed, but at the end of the day, President Mwai Kibaki and the then Prime Minister Raila Odinga and their cabinet and other members of parliament came up with a new constitution. 10 years on, we have gathered here with a new generation looking into what Kenya has achieved since then, what has been the challenges and what is supposed to be done in order to ensure that the constitution benefits all and sundry. Tonight, we are joined by Mr. Cyrus Litswa, who is a policy and a governance expert. We are also joined by one and only Iron Lady, that is Anita Nkirote. Anita Nkirote is a political analyst with also a vast experience and currently working with the Third Way Alliance, and just yesterday they expelled, or I don't know, they suspended their party leader. We are also joined by Mr. Frederick Tsatsia. Mr. Frederick Tsatsia is also a political and a policy governance expert. Join us on this discussion as we look on the steps that Kenya has made on the youth affairs, economic affairs, and also the access to human rights. My name is Cornelius Omuse, and remember this conversation is also live on our Facebook page, CAC TV Kenya, and our YouTube channel, CAC TV Kenya. You'll excuse us for the mask, it's only about the COVID, but otherwise we shall overcome it, and you'll be able even to see our smile, whether we frown and whatever that we do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Powerbrief tonight. It's been a while, but tonight we are gathered here to look into the Constitution. And just briefly, you'll tell us your experience. How have you encountered or experienced the preparations to the celebrations or the anniversary of the 10 years? And they say, ladies first. We begin by Anita.
Thank you so much, Cornelius, for having me. It's an honor. And for me, I'd start by saying, as Third Way Alliance Kenya, you know, we've been on the forefront first on constitutional reforms with Punguza Mizigo. And also our party leader, former party leader who now we expelled, Dr. Ekuru Aukot.
So it's expulsion.
He's spending a disciplinary committee where his fate will be decided. Yes. He was at the Constitutional Review Committee, if you remember, and he has been at the forefront and is a renowned lawyer. So we are a constitutional party for that matter. For me, my experience is that looking at where we've come, I think civil society has taken the constitution head on. If you look at the likes of Katiba Institute, Uraia, they've come out very strongly to say that the constitution is okay the way it is and it only needs implementation. But as an individual, I'll ask all of us, and I'll ask Kenyans at large. The question is, does the constitution work for the man, or does the man work for the constitution? And therein will lie our answers. Yes.
Many thanks. Let's hear also from Mr. Cyrus Litswa. How has this 10th anniversary been conducted? Have citizens been taken back to connect on what has been happening in between here and what is likely to happen again 10 years from now?
Thank you, Mr. Omuse. First of all, I want to correct you. You're not a young generation. Some of us voted for this constitution. And we participated fully in ensuring that we have this constitution. So we rallied the people to go and vote for this constitution. So we are a generation that is actually growing this constitution. We are the ones who are ready and there to ensure that this constitution is adhered to. From our own political parties to each and every institution that is in this country. And this constitution has actually broadened our minds, opened our way of thinking in a way that we as youth, we've been able to participate in many activities constitutionally, okay? Unlike before. You see, like 1992, the times of Kina James Orengo, people were always on the street, calling for new constitution, fighting with the police, exchanging stones and, let me say, bullets. But right now, it's a matter of Like you see how she brought it, that their lands, the constitutional party. But I know it's not a constitutional party, just because their party leader was the spearhead of the constitution.
Former party leader.
All right, fine. It does not guarantee them to be a constitutional party, because there is a contradiction. Why am I saying so? The political party leader, the former party leader, Mr. Ekuro Kot, was the one who came up among the people like Nazamba Kitonga and others with this constitution. Now they say, he says is a mzigo to the Kenya. Now how do you give us a mzigo, then you come and say you need to punguza mzigo? So there's a problem in that. And that's why yesterday they decided to topple his leadership, because he's a man who does not believe in himself. So what I'm saying is this: we've seen youths in government getting employed, even in parastatals, the appointments for the youths. This is something that we've never experienced.
We'll get there when we come to the youth part, because it has to contain evidence.
Yes,
you must have substantiate, and also with the rate. Let's also hear Mr. Satsia, as far as the 10th anniversary is concerned. How has everything been conducted before we even get into how the entire constitutionalism has been for the past 10 years?
Thank you, Mr. Musa. First, I have to appreciate for hosting me here. It's a great honor. But then I have to say about the Constitution is we've had one of the most progressive constitution ever since 2010, once we voted for it. It has been a constitution that has really encompassed every group and society and every leader. We've seen youth, we've seen women being represented, and even those with disabilities being represented in equal measures as those people who got those other rights. So as for me, I want to appreciate the Constitution, but the devil lies in the implementation. There are some aspects in our Constitution that have remained so good on paper, but we've never implemented them to mean good in action the way those people who wrote it. We've left the Constitution to remain a document lying somewhere and implementing what matters to us. And the biggest mistake, as from where I sit from, is when we let all to do with implementation to the political class. These are the same people who planned our country. These are the same people who do not want to implement the Constitution for reasons they know, but we can guess that they do it in parts. They only go for the articles or parts of the Constitution that benefits them. But whatever tries to limit them or gives the common man a privilege, they tend to put it under the table. So going forward, even as we celebrate the 10th year since we got our new Constitution, we need to look at our independent bodies and look on how we can implement the Constitution fully without really having to depend on the political class. Because every time we put our trust and everything in the political class, and these are the very people who destroy our country, then we need to have also a way that we can limit them when it comes to matters of constitutional implementation.
Many thanks, Mr. Sassia. Now, tonight we will be touching into 3 important issues that actually is fit for you as a panel to look at to them, because the Constitution itself is a very wide document, but are these things that are basic that you cannot just do without them. And he mentioned Orengo and his company, and I'm very sure when Orengo and his company were on the street, some of us were not born or we were still toddlers by then, but we've read history, what they did and their company and what they are doing right now. I don't know whether it relates. That's a story for another day. The aspect of human rights, where since the colonial times, what the Mau Mau, all those warriors were fighting was some things to do with human rights. We were given our independence, then Africans themselves took over. That is here in Kenya. There were problems in between there. You remember the 1992, the clamor for the repeal of the Section 2A. Up to that time, up to 1997, how the interparliamentary group, how it came together, the likes of the late Wamalwa and all that. We want to look at access to human rights before the new constitution, and for the past 9 years, how has this been? Beginning with Anita, from your history, how has been access to human rights been? Which actually falls in Chapter 4.
4 of the Constitution, yes. So Chapter 4 of the Constitution talks about the Bill of Rights, and we've seen a tremendous, we must acknowledge the good things that are there. But for me, I'll begin by being the devil's advocate. Today we are in the new age, new era, where we are talking about new technology. And for me, I'm looking at a space of, yes, chapter 4, we have freedom of association. We are looking at even freedom of the press and the media. But now we have a new age media, which is social media. So for me, I'm looking straight at social media, the new digital age, and I'm asking myself, we have new people, the likes of Robert Alai, the likes of Dennis Itumbi. Where are their rights? Are they protected? Can they be picked up from their homes at any time? Because they should be able to publish what they perceive to be true. And we can look at even a case of examples internationally, like US President Donald Trump. He does tweet, and it's up to Twitter to verify the truth, not he himself. Him as a politician, he uses Twitter as a platform. So for me, when I look at the Bill of Rights, and in specific freedom of the media, I am worried about the space of the new social media. But also I'd like to acknowledge the gains that we have gained in terms of unlawful detentions. You remember there was a lot of assassinations. Of course, I cannot forget the IBC commissioner who was killed, but you cannot compare to those days where you would differ with the president openly, and in the next 2 weeks you are missing, or you are nowhere to be found. We've seen even cases during the division of revenue bill, whereby the likes of Cleopas Malala tabled in parliament their issues, the likes of Senator Sakaja, whereby they said they were being followed. And we took it seriously. The government took it seriously. They have protection, and they could be in a better space. So have we come from a better space? Yes. Can civil society, like today, organize protests? Yes. Are justice centers protected in the Constitution? Yes. Can they hold protests? Yes. Of course, but within certain confines. So for me, in terms of Bill of Rights, we've come so far, but I believe Chapter 4 is a clause of the Constitution that cannot and must not be touched. In any case, it must be made stronger, and it must actually be implemented, and clauses must come that now accommodate for the likes of, you might want to call them bloggers. I call them the new age, the fifth, rather. If you want to call them the fifth estate, the fifth estate must now be protected.
So there's an addition from Inkirote that apart from what is in the Constitution, also technology and digital revolution has helped actually in fostering access to human rights. Let's hear from Omwami Litswa, because he also has his own experiences. Maybe yours has been a smooth one. You've been getting freedom. Let's get from the philosopher himself.
There's no freedom that has been infringed on my side with regards to the Bill of Rights. I can say, as a constitution is a gradual process. Constitution does not stop on the amalgamation day. Constitution changes, goes on every now and then, depending on the trends, the new trends that come in day out, like the digital platform she has mentioned. You see, these are new trends. Now we need to look at them in a different angle. How do they fit in the Constitution? How are these people going to be protected when they post something, be it radical or be it friendly? How are they going to be protected? Because as much as you post something, there's someone somewhere who will feel offended. There's someone somewhere who will celebrate. So it's a two-way traffic. So we need to sit down and look at it. How are we going now to accommodate this group into the Constitution so that they feel protected among on the Bill of Rights? The Constitution itself needs a little bit further amendments, not only a little bit, further amendments, as much as we are fighting to bring BBI on the table. We also need to look at those clauses that are very important that we need to implement fully. See, because our Constitution is not fully implemented. And as she has mentioned, there are only those parts that are picked that serve interests of a few that have been implemented. But now we need to look at it. How are we going to implement this Constitution fully? It's a good Constitution, a very progressive Constitution that serves, and even other nations in the world look at it and admire it. But how are we going to make it more and more progressive to the future generation that is going to come? So these are some of the things that we need to sit down. We as the champions, we as the youths, need to look into how our own children, our own grandchildren, going to benefit from this constitution that we promulgate, so that it does not die. Okay, because as much as we look at other things like BBI and any other changes that we seem to bring, are they papers that we are going to add? You see, like South Africa came up with a paper. They always come up with papers that they add in onto their constitution. Tanzania came up with a paper some years back, and they added onto their constitution. So are we going to add a paper, an amendment to our constitution, or are we going to change our whole constitution? So these are some of the things that we need to sit down and interrogate ourselves and ask.
Let's invite in Mr. Frederick Sasia, also his experience on access to human rights.
You see, first I have to say chapter 4 of our constitution on human rights is one of the chapters that has been implemented in parts. Those who have chosen to pick parts that favor them have kind of put aside the rights of those majority. Like, for example, my sister said here that you can organize protest. But the constitution recognizes that if you apply for protest, you are given the right documentation and you are allowed to be on the streets, the police ought to guard you. Is it happening in our country? So if you say that we've made a step when it comes to protest, I want to differ, because our police officers have never realized this constitution covers everyone, including them. And they are some of the people why I say that we've chosen to implement the constitution in parts. You look at the people like the politicians arrest. Just the other day, the Malala and the other group were arrested simply for advocating for a sober opinion on the revenue bill allocation. And you realize that the human rights bill was put in our constitution just as a writing, but not meant really to be implemented the way it should be. Because when we say the human rights, it's supposed to implicate a situation whereby Omusa is allowed to give his sober opinion on matters of national interest without any intimidation, even to an extent of organizing protest, without anyone interfering with the protest, as long as you remain within the confines of the law. In fact, the constitution says police officers are supposed to offer protection and security for other people, not to harm you with protesting. So when you look at that aspect, the constitution is not so good implemented. Then when you come to the right of speech and other things, I can say we've made a good step. At least as a country, you can speak anything you want, and you are not vindicated for that. But when you come to the rights in the social media, where she said the fifth estate, I want to differ a lot. The constitution is not there to guard bad manners. When we are given social media and we are told we have rights, it is not rights to advocate our bad or immoral minds. It is also rights to change a society. When you have a good following like the bloggers have, you need to advocate a sober opinion to people. If it is about politics, you need to advocate a sober politics. We need a country whereby our next generation of leaders are going to be about issues. Our next generation of people who are doing advocacy are going to do about issues and opinions. But we cannot have people who come post things that are so much immoral, then call on the same constitution that calls for morality to defend them. On that, I tend to be rogue and support the police arrest. Only that I support where they are arrested and taken to a court of law. Not arrested and put somewhere without any trial to know that which mistake they had done. But generally, I want to say on the Bill of Rights, we've made so good steps as a country. If you compare before 2010 and now, our constitution has offered a good platform and space. Even us being here, we can speak, we can castigate the president. As opposed to previously, you could speak things and a phone call comes in and the show is cut off and the police are just outside waiting for you. So we have space to speak our mind. We have a space to change our political arena. We have space to give our sober opinion. And I always say this, our next generation of leaders is going to be a group of leaders who are sober-minded, and it is us to either change that generation or even take up the leadership and be the change that people are expecting.
Cornelius, as a rejoinder to my brother, because he mentioned a few things that I talked about, a lot of respect to you, but also we don't live in an utopian society whereby everything is perfect. For example, when you look at aspects of the constitution, like I talked about, like in specific regard to like police brutality. Yes, we have freedom of speech, but if you look at how the police have been trained, we have to look at issues like police reforms. So that, yes, you have these rights, but do you know, do the police also, I used to see the jokes in social media when the president would pronounce a curfew, the curfew is at 6 p.m. People would say, oh, yes, I know the curfew is at 6 p.m. or at 7 p.m., but what do the police know? So it's a matter of, it's not just a wholesome, yes, we have the constitution, yes, we can implement it. We have organs that are responsible for the implementation of the constitution. My question therefore is, are there police reforms? We have the organs that are maybe salaries and remuneration commission, all those commissions that we have. Are there reforms? Do they know exactly what they're supposed to do? Is there training and development? So while we're advocating for these specific rights, we must also ask ourselves, are the organs involved exactly know what they're supposed to do? And do they understand where we need to go going forward?
Just to add something on what she has said. She has brought it out very well. And you see, every market has got its own mad person. And you see, this generation of keyboard, they have also their own Wendazimus. When you come to the streets...
Which are also part of that generation, or you're excused?
He's in the old generation. You said it when you started.
And you see, even those people who go on the street to picket, they have their own madness. You see, there's how they also come out, and there are those people on the same group who come out to demonstrate in an awkward manner. You see,
okay. Before you proceed, awkward. How are people supposed to demonstrate? Because
you see,
few days ago, I was in some place within CBD. I was doing my transactions. Then all of a sudden, it was tarehe saba ile tarehe saba mwezi wa saba juzi. Then nikaona watu wanaingia, people are crying, wengine wanakuja na maji wanajimwagia, so tukaanza kucheka, not knowing that ni tear gas ilikuwa imepulizwa ikatufikia pia. Like it was just a hell of a time. So as you brought up the issue of picketing and demonstrating, it is said that people are supposed to be given permission. I know you've participated in those things at some point. You've participated in those picketing and demonstration, and even yourself. Which procedures have you been following? Before you answer later, Mr. Liswa, tell us, because there's talk of awkward. Which procedures have you been following? Kama ile Machozi Monday, mlikuwa mnachukua license, permission, or people are just going on the streets?
There's no way you can picket without getting a license. You have to get that license.
So even the Machozi Monday, the license was being given.
Yes, there was a license.
Tear gas follows.
Yeah, there's a license.
No, I agree.
You get a license, the tear gas follows.
Yes, you know I agree. Listen. My mom is very fond of telling me, your right to demonstrate or your rights end where my nose begins. Look at it this way. He has the right to go, he has the license, he can go and do Machozi Mondays. I myself know Monday ni Machozi Monday, but I have my own business in town and I'm not going to stop my business because of his business. If he does not strike, demonstrate within his certain confines, the police has the right to come and also protect me.
That one
because
is known.
as he is picketing, I have to be protected.
You've cut me short. I wanted to give you steps and examples of those picketing. So we participated in those Machozi Mondays. Okay, I have been also on the street on things to do with National Youth Council, whereby we took our memorandum to the National Assembly. There are things that the government, the Ministry of Youth were bringing to us that we didn't want them. We wanted our own institution that is managed by the youth themselves, whereby we elect our own leader, we choose our own leaders, not having leaders imposed on us. So we did our memorandum. So we walked the streets, okay, from Bruce House, okay, to Parliament. Then we went through City Hall, round this with Parliament. So we did what we call peaceful demonstration, okay. It was peaceful. I don't mean that the others were not peaceful. They were peaceful. But this one didn't have tear gas. We were well protected. We walked pole to the Parliament. So we gave out, we handed over our memorandum. Then we came back. Then the Machozi Mondays were there. But you see, the way she has said, somebody has opened the shop. Okay? Then another mad person, that's why I said, in every market, there's a mad person. So another mad person goes, because he has that heart of disturbance. So he decides to go and robs in a shop. Do you think a police officer who is a law enforcer will not stop this person from going to rob a shop?
Now,
so he will go.
Mr. Frederick
He will go.
Mr. Liswa, there was a certain professor who once said this, that there can never be a peaceful demonstration anywhere in the world. You saw when Floyd died, that is in US. And this is some of the countries we call the first-class countries. And you saw even the losses were more than even those ones of Machozi Mondays and those that happens in Nairobi. So is it time that that part of demonstration is scrapped away as a way of seeking redress when people are agitated in any way?
You see,
we do away with it because it's something that seems not to be working.
You see what? Did you actually watch those demonstrations in the US? People were breaking into shops. I'm telling you, I saw it literally on CNN. People are breaking into shops, stealing. People are destroying property. Remember, this is a property that you've created. This is a property where somebody is employed. Okay? They are being destroyed. Then after demonstration, will you sit at home because there's no employment? Because where you go to employment, somebody has vandalized the place. Is this the society that we want to live in? That is where a fight between a policeman and the demonstrators comes in. Because the police is trying to enforce the law. Okay? And maintaining law and order. Remember the maintenance of law and order. And because this is a demonstration, there's no way a police can come and just arrest you this way. He will try to protect, because he doesn't know what you are carrying. He will try to protect himself. So he may decide to use a rubber bullet or whatever, let me say the tear gas canisters.
So does it
so
mean
that
as I usher in my brother Frederick, does it mean that that part of the leniency of the Constitution allowing for the so-called, in quotes, peaceful demonstration should be dealt away with? Because there is that excitement that usually comes during demonstration.
No, it is not dealt away with, but people should be disciplined.
Before you answer that,
people should be disciplined.
Before you answer that, we need to
even don't answer that. That's just
we need to understand something. Why does the Constitution say that once I'm going to picket, there's supposed to be police who are offering me protection?
Yes.
The Constitution means we have these mad people who will join my demonstration to cause some havoc or destruction. That is the reason why the Constitution provides that there must be police officers to protect me and the other person who is not picketing. So when the police come in and lob tear gas to me who is demonstrating peacefully, to that person who is now causing havoc, and even to the business owner, then it means the police are becoming rogue. We need to call the police to serve their purpose the right way, the constitutional way. If I'm demonstrating, the law provides that I need to provide the roads that I'm going to demonstrate through. It is expected we will have police presence on the streets to protect the shops, probably lining on the both sides of the road and leading the demonstrations. But in our country, you apply for a license you are given, you start a demonstration, even before you reach the roads that you had mentioned, you are a tear gas is lobbed your direction. We cannot continue calling saying the police
are an ingredient for demonstrations.
And you see, that is what aggravates the demonstrators to now turn violent.
No.
But if our police officers, if our police officers are people who are also being ordered, and when people apply for demonstration certificate, they follow the procedure and protect the shop owners, and at the same time confine the demonstrators to the roads they applied. We can have order.
We don't live in utopia. Listen.
Yes.
We don't live in utopia. And by the time you're coming to tell the police, let's be honest and let's be serious. You're telling the police, I'm protesting from point A to point B.
Yes.
The police, no, you must give a reason why you're demonstrating within your rights, within the Constitution. But let's not forget, also the police have intelligence. So they already know they're supposed to, one of the works of the intelligence officers is they're supposed to predict if anything goes wrong, what we will do. And I'm telling you, you must give me a clear case that highlights that these people were innocent, they were moving from point A to B, they did not attack the police officers, they did not attack anybody, and they were beaten. And
let me tell
you an example. A practical example.
Yes,
at some point when we were still in campus, it was around 3 p.m. One of us passed on, and then there was this allegation that it was due to negligence of the university that this fellow comrade passed on. Then something just began, a small kamukunji, blah blah blah, ABCD, wakasema we do a peaceful demonstration. But as people get to the road, you see excitement starts coming. Unaona hizo vibanda za kina mama zinaangushwa, miwa inavunjwa, watu wanaingia ndani, mwingine anavunja miwa.
Already example, you shot yourself in the foot. Yes. No, I want to give a good example.
As we come to the end of this part of whether we should be having this part in the constitution or not as an alternative means of solving conflict, don't you think that this aspect of peaceful demonstration is proving to be too difficult with a human person?
You see,
that there should be a proper approach. If people are agitated, there should be another way, because it is a recipe for chaos.
Now, you see, there's something she mentioned. The police reforms, the institutions that are there, do they understand the constitution? Do they understand their role as per the constitution that it states? Very right. Number two, does the person demonstrating understand the law?
There is a difference between understanding and practicing.
I must say, give me a minute. You see, today, you see me the way I am, as Cyrus Liswa, a civilian. But tomorrow you see me in a uniform. I'm a police officer. Okay? I'm disturbing my duties.
Sure you get there because
no. I'm just giving an example. I'm disturbing my duties as a police officer. Okay? Then in other parts, I'm also a citizen, an individual, a father, okay, and a friend to somebody. So as much as I'm a police officer, I'm also an individual. So the same rights that you want to protect you are the same rights that need also for me. I need to defend and also protect myself because I'm maintaining law and order.
This is a very interesting thing which will lead a topic.
So each and every person should understand this is where my constitution takes me. This is where I belong. So this is where I should be.
So everyone should focus on the limits.
Just understand where you are.
If we cannot allow demonstrations, then I can join and say, let us strike it out from our constitution.
Let
me go home tonight. Sasya, Girote, Mr. Liso, and even myself, these are homework. Let's go and see whether it is practical that there is something called peaceful demonstration, and then we'll be back here. Now, we come into something here about the youth. All of us here are youth.
Yes.
A few minutes from now, there is a certain professor will be joining us via phone link. He will be talking about accountability and cohesion. But you are the current, you are the present, and you are the future, meaning that a lot is actually pegged on you. Because as I look at you and the arguments that you're bringing on Powerbrief tonight, I'm seeing senators, I'm seeing women representatives, and who knows, we could be having the first woman president in this panel, or the first president, again, male president, and the running mate here. What comes here, all those will have to be prepared. And you remember those times when the Pope came to Kenya, when Obama came to Kenya, their talk was focus on the youth because they are the future. So this constitution, since the promulgation, there have been calls here and there about the youth, and we want to get it from you, from your interactions. I'm glad you worked with someone who made the constitution. You've been in the youth lobby groups. My friend here, Litso, the same, and my friend Satya. Let's look at the position of the youth. How has everything been since 2010, beginning with Mama ya Vijana?
So for me, I'd say since 2010, when you look at the youth, there are first of all various positions. These nominated youth, also nominated women who are also youth falling into that bracket. But I know the thing that will get to the heart of my brother over here, and many of us, is the National Youth Council and the restructuring. When the National Youth Council was created, and even the youths that were there, who are, most of them are no longer youths today, it was a very powerful organization. And you can actually trace, you can say, Mr. Paul Mugambi was here and today he is here. But what happened is the position of the National Youth Council was somehow crippled. And right now we have a briefcase, an organization run by Roy Sakasaka, who doesn't even have...
Before we mention names and personalities, my dear sister Kirote, is this NYC, or is there a structure, a clause in the Constitution that said chapter X or Z talks about youth, blah, 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 blah. Don't go on the youth attender and whatever, and the PWDs and the Constitution come out clearly, specifically to talk on the youth.
In specific regard to the Constitution.
To the Constitution.
Yes, in specific regard to the Constitution. There is the 2/3 gender rule that speaks specifically on women. But when I analyze the Constitution on the specific topic, even when you Google the word youth, it's only acts of parliament that speak on youth. It's only like the AG4, the ones that you've mentioned, like the National Youth Council, which apparently is under an MDA. That's the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Women. So in specific regard to say that youth have been mentioned and they have a right, I'm yet to see. It's only implied. It's the unwritten rules that if you nominate, you're nominating people, 2/3 must be women, PWDs, and also youth. But in specific regard, the Constitution does not give a special treatment to the youth. And perhaps I'd say because currently, if you look at the current state that we are in, the first time a voter, the one who will be turning 18 in 2022, is the one who will be determining your MCA, your president. It's the same issue also with women, but women have been more favored as compared to the youth. So the assumption is, if the majority of the country is a young country, Kenya considered a young country and having a young population, is that then the youth should be able to vote in one of their own. So I would say the drafters of the Constitution considered that majority should be able to protect themselves. But it is the majority with the most minimal resources, and the majority who have to fight through a system to ascend to systems of power.
Now, there is this common say which says information is power, and the Constitution itself is information. And it becomes very difficult for someone across the Republic of Kenya, especially the youth, maybe to use common sense and say that we are the majority. Sometimes even a number of them do not know that they're majority. They rely on you, just the same way you've told them, that a child born in the year 2004 is the one who will make Litswa an MP in 2022, or make him not to be, depending on how he's going to approach them in Kandui.
Yes.
Now, what comes here is, was this a deliberate ignorance, or it is something that as a society we are more focused on forgetting the youth?
I'd like to say, for me, even if we have affirmative action, it doesn't matter how long, and I'll quote the president, power is there to be taken through constitutional means. Power is there to be grabbed. No one at the end of the day will give you power, because even if we give you power as a nominated MC or a nominated member of parliament, we expect after 5 years you have something to show. We expect that you will go to the ballot. It's only maybe you delayed a bit by being nominated and or being appointed to certain positions. So at the end of the day, as much as youths we want specific inclusion in the Constitution, we still have to go out there and fight for our space. Orengo did it, Sakaja is doing it, Mutula Kilonzo is doing it.
Kirote, as you talk of that, of grabbing and taking power,
within a constitutional
means, which is okay, it has to be that way. After we get to hear also from the understanding of Mr. Satsia and Omwami Litswa, I'll bring in something about the youth, which a lot of them have requested me to bring to your attention, and also maybe talk about it, as far as you're saying that let them use the constitutional means, but they still feel there is a very huge mountain or barrier somewhere. From your own understanding, as you read the constitution, maybe ilikuwa translated in your own language, lugha ya Nkirote pia mwami yake. How did you find the youth aspect in this constitution?
First, once we talk about youth, it is good to understand that about 75% of the Kenyan population is made of people between 18 years and 35 years, who we call now youth. But unfortunately, that group of people are not employed, are unemployed, and they feel so much short-charged in terms of access to services, representation, and even participation. It is so unfortunate because this is a group that we need to nurture in the right way. But we've neglected that group and left it to live by its own means. But if you go to our constitution, in the write-up, they did a very good talk of youth. They talked about youth in the constitution, about bringing them into leadership, government tenders through AGPO, and some other aspects. But where the constitution failed is, it failed to provide a clear framework on the implementation of those articles that were written in the constitution.
The drafters of the constitution, not the constitution.
Those drafters of the constitution. So the constitution fails on that. And you realize that it has left the mandate to the parliament, who should come up now with acts or parliament bills on how to enact, to legislate, or rather to implement the constitution on those acts that talk about youth. Then you realize when it is left to the parliament, they don't even do it the right way it's supposed to be done. That is one. Two, there is this ghost of nomination that now came in, and youth feels they need to fight. They don't need to fight for that space. They need to be given. What our constitution said is, they wanted to provide a level playing ground, whereby if I want to vie for the presidency, the constitution removed in the aspect of money. But we failed to implement that and let the politicians to run away dishing out money. Now a poor me wants to run for the presidency cannot afford to give money the same way that other person gives. So the constitution was trying to bring in a level playing ground, where I'll not need to have a lot of cash to come into leadership. I'll not want to be nominated. Like you see, for example, my case, I would not want to be nominated to a leadership position. I would want to fight it out and win a leadership position. That is when I can stamp my authority, I can speak my mind out. But you see, once you are nominated, you are limited. You cannot speak your mind. So youth have relied so much on this ghost of nomination, of which I think going forward we need to change. We need to implement the constitution where it prohibits use of money in campaigns. That will allow other people like youth, women, and even those people who are poor but have leadership skills and ambitions to come into leadership. When it comes to the issue of doing business with the government or youth getting tenders, it is another thing that the constitution has spoken about. But now come to implementation. It is person B who has 75 years who goes and registers a company with my details of a 25-year-old and wins a tender in government. Then it is said it was given to a youth. But come on, are we just looking at the documents and satisfying that this one is a youth? Or are we going an extra mile to really know that whoever registered this company, whoever runs this company, whoever is going to benefit from this tender is a Kenyan youth who is between 18 years and 35 years. We should stop this madness of sitting somewhere in an office, receiving papers, people making phone calls at night, and the same people are giving tenders, and the same people are winning the same tenders under the name of youth, women, and those with disabilities.
That falls actually on the part of integrity, which is it's a dangerous disease where we are more than, people say it's more than, let me not mention. Now,
the youth have decided to become complacent. It is you to choose. It is you to fight for what you want. Because most of the youth that we see today who are in positions, I was giving an example of my friends here in Kirote. I've known her for a very long period of time. No one held her hand. Okay, no one just gave her a position on a silver platter. She woke up, she fought for it till where she is. Okay, so it's all about the youth. It's all about the motive in you. What do you want to be used for? Do you want just to be used, somebody to register your company using your credential, a 75-year-old who is going to get 50 million and you get 1 million? You need to wake up. Okay, rise up to the occasion. Fight for what belongs to you. The parliament acts that are there, not everything will be in the constitution, and that's why parliament is there. Not everything will be in the constitution. That's why we have the county assemblies. Not everything will be in the constitution. That's why we have institutions in place. Okay? Institutions to come up with the policies. Policies that will come up into legislation. A legislation that will turn into an act of parliament. An act of parliament that will guide and be part of the constitution, that will be used in the rule of law of day-to-day running of the business.
Many thanks, Ms. Liswa. Our time is actually almost finishing us, or I don't know if we are the ones who are finishing the time. Now, the last aspect here before I bring in Professor via phone link is the issue of economy, because watu wanasema mtapiga makelele yote human rights blah blah blah, but if you don't have anything to eat, then you're as useless as the word useless itself. I don't know how true it is. Now, for the past 10 years, in summary, how has Kenya fared on when it comes to the economy and also the national government or the national revenue expenditure? And we begin with Mr. Tsasia as we come this side. How is our economy been performing under the new constitution, considering that we have the devolved system of governance?
Our economy has been faring on so terribly. The reason has been the government has taken on to take projects that are so populist, but not projects that are beneficial in terms of economy. You realize that there's something that we've managed to devolve successfully is corruption. Corruption is happening everywhere. In the county assemblies, right from the governor to the MC, even to the village elder. In the national government, people are haggling for the government money. People are stealing. Our economy is performing terribly. Our agriculture is on its knees. You realize that nowadays we import almost everything. Kenya does not even produce matchbox. How do you expect our economy to grow? The rate or the percentage of unemployment in this country has really grown in the last 10 years. We have so many graduates who are going to apply for jobs, to the cleaning jobs, the kazi mtaani. 70% of people doing kazi mtaani are graduates. Are we a country whereby we want to educate people in the university? People are taking engineering, medicine, and all those big courses to come and do kazi mtaani. You see, we need to look at the aspect of the growing our economy wholesomely. In terms of employment, our agriculture, our exports, we need to limit so much on what we are importing as compared to what we are exporting. There's supposed to be a balance. But where we see it, I blame the national government, because we've taken so much billions to undertake populist projects. As I always tell people, any government publicizing on the roads they've done, that is a populist government. A serious government should now come and tell us how the irrigation farms have done, how our exports market is doing, how our employment are doing, the companies we've raised. But as we sit and where I sit from, we are performing so poorly.
Many thanks. Let's hear from Kirote also briefly, because economy is a topic of its own. We shall come at that at another level. But briefly, how has the country fared on matters economy under the new constitution for the past 10 years?
Thank you for the disclaimer. It's interesting, before I came here, I was looking at a clip that was showing the GDP comparison of Kenya and its East African counterparts. And it's in specific regard to the years of growth. And you see our economy was performing best during Kibaki's time. And this was, you would say, almost before the new constitution. So the guys who've actually implemented the new constitution is the new regime. And we are in, I would say we are in a crisis. Why am I saying we are in a crisis? The issue of public debt. When you look at the public debt, the country is borrowing and borrowing. At year 2020, COVID-19 came. Kenya borrowed a lot of money. Tanzania, while we doubt its health protocol and safety, declined to borrow and said, hey, we are not going to borrow money that we cannot afford. And even when you, as I've mentioned, when you look at East Africa and you look at Rwanda, you can actually see strides in Rwanda. Call it PR code, call it whatever, but when you walk in the streets of Rwanda, you feel proud. I was in Uganda in the earlier year, and food is cheap. One of the things that must be cheap is food. For us, as my brother mentioned, we are importing even food, agriculture. The areas of western region of this country should be able to provide for us with enough maize, enough sugar, but we've literally crippled the sectors with cartels all over in the agriculture ministry and the like. So when you look at basics in terms of importation, we even import clothes, yet we have river tax, which should be providing clothes. And again, in specific regard to even the COVID era, in terms of PPEs, most of the PPEs were imported at first before we began producing locally. And when we produced locally, again, it was corruption. Air was supplied. Or the PPE, according to KEMSA, PPE was bought at 7,000. A packet is bought at 7,000, where it should be 500 or 350 to 500. So for me, when I look at the economy, I think we are performing dismally, because honestly, we can do better. In specific regard to devolution, everything that was devolved in the constitution should be handled by the counties. Currently, when we are debating the division of revenue bill, only about 350 billion is going to the counties, while 3 trillion is remaining in the national government. Yet an issue like health is fully devolved. So in terms of COVID, we see more preparedness by the national government as compared to the county, who should have had the money. So for me, when it comes to money and the economy, I think we are performing dismally. And why I'm saying that is when we compare with our neighbors, the likes of especially Rwanda, I don't think we are doing well. Even the overall Kenyan is not happy compared to the other East Africans.
Before Reggae resumes, as a former PM talked about, we shall have a show here with you guys and try to look on the remedies on how Kenya can stand back on its feet, especially as they are talking of having 45% of the national revenue at Mashinani level. Omwami, in summary, because our time is up, what has how has Kenya behaved economically for the past 10 years?
The economy of Kenya is nothing to ask about. It has behaved poorly. Why? We have no industries in this country to employ our own youths. Okay, the youth graduates every year. University graduates are almost 10,000 plus. There are no jobs. Now, we have no infrastructure in this country. We have engineers who have gone to school, but where are the roads to be constructed? Who construct the road? We take China Bridge. We have engineers who can even do water drilling and other things, but who do we hire? We believe in China. We import everything. We import even skills. So when that time will come, we stop importing skills, then we shall grow our economy. When we shall put our universities into action, we shall grow our economy. And I don't see any leader who is coming to grow our economy by putting a focus onto our youths, okay, especially the knowledge that we get from our universities. This shows that we don't believe in our own knowledge that we get from our own local universities, but we believe from people who have even, let me say, don't have even that knowledge, okay? So what we need to do is to empower our own institutions, the industries. Let each and every county have their own industries. Because I come from a county that it doesn't have industry. So where are those youth going to be? So these are some of the things that we need to sit down and discuss. These are some of the things that we need to come up and ensure that we have them.
Let's get a phone link from Professor Frederick Ogenga, who will also talk a little bit about accountability and cohesion as far as the Kenyan Constitution 2010 is concerned. Straight away, we are joined by Professor Frederick Ogenga. Professor Frederick Ogenga is a professor of communication and media studies, having been trained in the University of Witwatersrand at his higher education level, and has been a visiting scholar at the University of Boston in the United States of America. We brought him on Powerbrief tonight so that he'll also take us through the achievement that Kenya has made as far as the new constitution, the new structure of government, and everything that he feels that each and every stakeholder can put in place to ensure that Kenya as a country continues to make strides on matters of politics, policy, and governance. Welcome, Professor Frederick Ogenga, on Powerbrief, and briefly tell us your experience with the new constitution.
Actually, thank you so much, Omuse, for this opportunity. One thing I would like to point out before I go further is the fact that, in fact, I was one of the people who participated in giving the BBI views in terms of the constitutional changes that are actually being spearheaded as we speak. But having said that, I think the constitution in Kenya is something to celebrate, which from a formulated in 2010. I think it's something that is progressive, and I think this constitution, what it has done is that it has really taken Kenya out of this cycle of violence. And I'm saying that because we only got the new constitution after the reconciliation that happened, and therefore we knew that going forward, at least we had a mechanism for redress when political electoral losers actually lose the race. They can actually seek redress, and we saw that happening in 2017 when there was this constitutional case that was presented by the opposition to protest actually the re-election of the current president. And we saw how it took place, and we know that that Supreme Court judgment really averted a level of bloodshed that would have been witnessed because we had been there before in 2007 and we saw what happened. So in a nutshell, the Constitution not only brought about a mechanism for seeking redress, it has cut off the cycle of electoral conflicts, and we are hoping that going forward, all we need to do is actually to keep on working and cement the gains that the Constitution has provided so far. So I think the Constitution is progressive, and it can only be as progressive as it's being implemented. We cannot argue that the progress will be sustained if we are also shying away from implementing it to the full letter. So there are two things that yes.
Just to cut you short, where we are right now as a country, we are seeing a number of debates coming up. The issue of the BBI, and just a few days ago we had the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga talking of reggae resuming soon, and you understand what is reggae in this case. And yesterday, as the president was giving his address to the nation, he talked of it is necessary and it is time to amend the constitution. There are those ones who are looking at it and they say that the current constitution that we have only requires goodwill and implementation, not changing it further. What is your take from where you are standing? Do we need a change of the constitution or implementing what we already have?
No, honestly, I think the constitution need to be amended, and I think the constitution needs to be amended with caution and a little bit of honesty. By that I mean that we know our history, we know where we come from, we know why we have this constitution, but we know that we also have very contested electoral politics. Now, power is at the center of the problem. We know that the current system of governance, it does not give room for equal representation, or perhaps even diverse and multiple representations. And we are aware that Kenya has a number of ethnic communities. So we are seeing the devil rearing its head again in terms of positions of power and that idea of belonging, the fact that you are Kenyan and you need to equally participate in equal measure to matters development of the nation. So we see people trying to really bring the reservations around issues of marginalization and all that. So it means the constitution, as it is now, still needs some little bit of amendment so that it can bring some level of inclusivity to people who are actually still feeling marginalized even with this new constitution. And so what I mean is that we have seen how power has been decentralized through devolution, and devolution has worked well, is one of those mechanisms of redress, apart from the Supreme Court rulings that also gave us an equal measure of redress when it comes to presidential petition, which are hotly contested. Devolution gave people at the grassroots level the ability to participate as citizens of this nation. It also brought about the devolved resources and opportunities. And we have seen so far what that has done to Kenyans. It has really improved their lives significantly.
Now, Professor, on that part, there is an agreement that yourself and other opinion shapers, those ones who participated in actually drafting and even campaigning for this new constitution, they have admitted one thing, that yes, we have not achieved the airplane or 100%, but here is where we have actually reached. But again, as the clamor for the change of the constitution is coming up, there is a suggestion of the three-tier system of government, where we have the national government, we have the regional government, and the county governments moving down to the lower level. And remember, why we brought you on board is because you are a person who deals with the issues of mediations and diplomacy. On matters cohesion, don't you think that when you come up with the regional governments, either 8 of them or 14 of them, it will be splitting Kenyans further from where they were rather than even where we are at the moment, with the devolution and the independent commissions like the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, National Gender and Equality Commission, the Ombudsman, which comes up to show direction that let's do this, let's do that. What is your take on having again other expanded structures of the government?
In fact, I would like to pick it from there, because that's where I was going. I was headed before you asked the follow-up question. I wanted to tell you that it seems as if it's important in Kenya to consider the way of expanding the executive. In other words, to look at a system of governance that has got can be distributed in a manner that everyone in Kenya would feel represented, not necessarily representing all ethnic communities, but I think presenting more opportunities for competition, so that the competition is not a tight competition where everyone is competing for one seat, which is the presidency, and we know that there can only be one president at a time. So by bringing up a few other constitutional offices, is just an innovative way of inclusivity, you know, so that you can include others, so that if you don't get the presidency, well, you can be represented at the prime minister position, perhaps, or even the deputy president position, deputy prime minister position, so that you reduce the level of anxiety and interest and desire that has been actually put on the seat of the presidency.
Then lastly,
so in other words,
Professor,
power sharing, yes.
Lastly, looking at what we've been fighting, that is a COVID-19 pandemic, which we are already not out of the woods. Secondly, we are having a number of issues, economic recovery, and here we are having the succession politics, which is on the way. Do you think it is the right time to have the debate of changing the constitution, or we can just go to the 2022 polls and then have a discussion of changing the constitution later on?
As our constitution says, they don't belong to the state. The rights belong to the individual. So it's up to the state to actually guarantee these individuals that they're going to protect those rights, so that the individuals can also consent and give them the authority to lead and to represent them. So it's a cycle of representation. So that I love about the constitution, and I want to tell you that really we cannot argue that we can stop talking about politics now because of COVID-19, because COVID-19 has also become political. And therefore politics continues as usual, and we cannot shy away from it. We know COVID-19 stopped the reggae a little bit, as some of us would want to hear from different quarters, and the reggae was paused. The reggae was paused by a pandemic. Pandemic and natural occurrences which come, and of course we know the rest is history of what has happened of COVID-19 and all that. But we cannot shy away from preparing ourselves so that come 2022, we have a political system that allows for equal representation and competition in such a way that those who lose will feel will lose with dignity, and they will feel happy that they are actually losers in a very healthy contest, not losing with bitterness in such a way that you transform that kind of loss to ethnicity and pointing fingers and incitement. And by the way, Article 4 of the Constitution that I've talked about also talks about the level that an individual also has a right to exercise his own freedom. It's not a free-for-all thing. It's freedom that comes with responsibility. So for instance, you as a Kenyan, as much as you are free in our constitution, as it is today, you don't have a right to incite people into violence. You don't have a right to use propaganda or use ethnicity against others. So that freedom also comes with an equal measure of responsibility. And since we know, just before you go on, since we know that freedom is also at the antithesis of the human soul, we know that people can be as free as much as they think they can infringe on others' rights. The state is aware, the Constitution envisaged that, and it came up with constitutional bodies that are supposed to measure the level that this freedom, the extent that this freedom can be exercised. So we have issues, we have constitutional bodies like the National Cohesion and Implementation Commission. We also have the Human Rights Commission. We also have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and so on and so forth. These are commissions that are supposed to be there to actually act as a guard, as a gatekeeper for the fact that, human beings are also really sometimes carried away in terms of their own desires, and they can misuse their freedom and liberty.
Lastly, Professor, your input, your advice, and your parting shot to the Republic, all stakeholders, the citizens, the political leaders, and everyone, as we celebrate the 10 years of Kenya under a new constitution.
I think my parting shot is umoja. My parting shot is umoja and ubuntu, uhuru, umoja and utu. In other words, even as we have this national conversation about the need to amend our constitution, let us do it with honesty. Let us do it for future generations. Let us do it as Kenyans, and let us come up with some level of amendments that can be beneficial to all Kenyans. So we should take issues of constitutional amendments very seriously. They should not be done through partisanship, and they should only be done with the spirit of Kenya in it, the spirit that says that we need a better Kenya, a Kenya that will be there for future generations.
Many thanks, Professor Frederick Ogenga. He is a man well versed with matters security, democracy, cohesion, and actually the constitutionalism. And without maybe ending, I'll tell our viewers that this is a man who actually groomed some of us to be doing what we are doing today, because a bigger percentage of the philosophy that we are possessing at the moment is because of the efforts that he put some time back when we were still in camp. We appreciate lady and two gentlemen for finding your time to come to Powerbrief tonight. It's been an engaging discussion, though we've not exhausted everything, and we've had an opportunity to look into the journey, how it has been. When you look at a child when they're born at the age of 10, they're actually approaching something to be teenagers, and that is where our constitution is. And hopefully by another 20 years, it will be somewhere above 18 years. This is a person who can even make decisions. Mr. Cyrus Litswa, Anita Nkiro Temis, and Mr. Frederick Sasia have taken us through this discussion, and later we've been joined by Professor Frederick Ogenga via phone link, who have contributed to the topic tonight as the country celebrates and commemorates 10 years under the new constitution. And as we said earlier on Powerbrief, our focus on policy transparency and governance matters, and good governance remains our key focus. We appreciate your overwhelming responses on our social media platforms and your feedback, because these are the things that keeps us going and continuing to serve you. We give an alternative voice because in media we are called the fourth estate, right? Fourth estate because there are other three estates, but we come as a fourth estate to remind the other three estates, that is the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, that is the Senate and the National Assembly. Till next Thursday, God willing, for me, Cornelius Omuse, I wish you a very good night.